I love me some children's moment on holidays. No excitement whatsoever. Will you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for the glory, the celebration, the joy of this day. And we ask your blessing. For we have read from your holy word, and now we seek to interpret your word. Be with us, guide us, help us, and protect us, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together will be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Amen. Why did you come here? I'm not really looking for an answer today. I should have said that before I asked the question, because I've worked so hard training you all to answer when I ask a question. Why did you come here? And not so much for why you came to church, but I think the bigger question for me on Easter is the women that came to the tomb. It said in the scripture, they wondered how they were going to get in. Right? I transliterated that a little bit. I translated there. They wondered how in the heck they were going to get into the tomb. So, why did they go? Have you ever pondered this? Have you ever stopped to think about the idea that the tomb itself, they had every reasonable expectation for it to be completely sealed and shut? That they weren't going to have a way in? You know, we spent our years learning that they came to finish the embalming or the spice process, the after-death process, right? So we don't even think about the fact that the scripture tells us they come wondering how they're going to get in. Now, I am thankful that none of you woke up this morning and said to yourself, well, maybe we're going to go to church. I wonder how we're going to get in. that didn't cross your mind, and I count that a blessing, that you were confident we would be here, the doors would be open, the coffee would be on, there'd be plenty of food. I know you were all planning on that. There'll be plenty later. It's all good. And yet the women came. They came because the tradition calls for them to come. They came because that's what you do after a death. But they also came hoping they would have a way to fulfill their obligation. I'm not a huge fan of that term. I think it was a lot of people's obligation. The fact that only 3 came bothers me a little bit. But they come and they arrive at the tomb. They find the stone has been rolled away, and they walk in and they're surprised by a guest. Who is this young man, as the scripture tells us, in the white robe? He's not named. It doesn't say anything about him being the one that rolled the stone away. He's just there, hanging out, sitting on a pile of discarded laundry. Or maybe a little rock in the corner, we don't know. Waiting. In the Mark version especially, this young robed man fascinates me. In John, we have an encounter with the risen Christ, that is, the robed man, right? In the Gospel according to John, there's a conversation in the garden, remember? In Matthew, the robed person is an angel of the Lord. In Luke, we get the same angel. But in Mark, just some random dude in a white robe. Because you see that all the time. Maybe back then that was a little more common. Let's choose to assume that was the case. And the women who have come to take care of the body of Jesus are startled. And he says, loosely translated again, why are you here? See how I brought that back? Why are you here? Why are you looking for Jesus? He's not here. He is, tell the disciples he's on his way to Galilee, just like he told you he was going to do. And yet they came. Now, there's something unique about, or another unique thing about the Gospel of Mark's story of Easter. Don't look. Just from memory. If you're ordained, don't answer. That was mostly for my father-in-law. Who did they tell?
Nobody.
Nobody! Who said that? Roll, you get a gold star today.
All right.
I'll give it to you later. I don't have it in my pocket. Nobody! So how are we going to know? If the story of Jesus being raised wasn't told, how are we supposed to know? Now, a little theology to back things up for a minute. Let's back the bus up and get you clear on this. Mark has a secrecy theme that has been happening all the way through the gospel. Every time Jesus does something noteworthy, he looks at his disciples and he says, "Don't tell." Every time. It's like getting a call from your friend. Now, don't tell anybody this. What do you want to do? Oh, do I want to tell? Oh, do I want to tell? I want to tell so bad. I got to tell somebody. And I don't know if that is a literary device, if that was indicative of the history of Jesus or what. But what I know is the story ends in the original ending of Mark with them not telling anyone. Now, there's another ending of Mark where they go and tell the disciples what they were told to tell. And there's another ending of Mark where some more things happen. Mark actually has 3 potential endings. It's like one of those comic books with the interactive thing. But who is this robed man? I got to tell you, I went back and forth, but I can't not do it. I don't know, but he left us this silver... No. Different story. Silver cross. He left us a silver cross to wear. That's it. I wonder, the one who knows what has happened to Jesus, the one who shares the news initially, the one who is able to be there in the moment of revelation of the joy, the celebration we come to church to celebrate, I wonder what would happen if just for a moment you gave yourself permission to ask, what if that someone was me? We know with God time means nothing. We know with God that the forgiveness that happened on the cross is still happening for every time and moment we find ourselves in a moment of sin. We know that God is continuing to work. And if time means nothing, what if that one that says Jesus is not here, he is risen, is you? And what if that's not an affirmation you can give? Friends, the message of Easter is salvation, is freedom from death, is release from sin. But more importantly, to me, for you today, did you catch that? To me, for you today. I'll repeat that one because it was weird, I know. Is you are called to be the messenger. I've told you my story. I've told you the story that was in the Bible. But somewhere, somehow, someone in your life still needs to hear the story from someone that's credible to them. Because somewhere in this room, there's someone that's giving themselves permission to be skeptical and say, yeah, but he's the professional Christian. He has to say that. Guilty. But I would say it anyway. Because the one who has the privilege of sharing the good news of Jesus Christ with others is the one who not so much receives special blessings from God, but if you've ever been the bearer of really good news, doesn't it feel good? Even better than the gossip. Sorry, you were the eyes I was on before, so I had to come back to you. At least you know me and you're used to this stuff. God gave us great news on Easter. And some mysterious robed man in the story of Mark, got to be the bearer of that news. Got to be the one that said, hey, it really happened. The stuff he said he was going to do is real. Don't be like the Mark story. Don't keep it a secret. Be that robed man. Share the good news of Jesus Christ. That death is defeated, sin is no more, and we have been redeemed and are still being redeemed. Thanks be to God. Amen.